Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, February 4th, 2014. It is now 7:34. I'd like to ask Selectman McKelney to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Item 1.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gary. Item 2, public forum, limited to 3 minutes on any agenda item. Anybody wishing to address the board? Mr. McKenzie, step forward, please.
You need me up there? Can I do it?
No, I need it here so we can get you on tape, and we just need your address and name and address.
Ken McKenzie, 6 Broad Street. I've got 5 items, so I'll be very brief on all of them. Not in any particular order. First, 2.5 months ago, I applied to be on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Since that time, I know that 2 alternates have been moved up, and Ray Bauer has been out publicly looking for people to sit on P&Z at the Route 1 West meetings, which I've been attending. So I would like some acknowledgement of my application at some point, please, and ideally a decision, yes or no, at some time. 2, I've been looking at the revaluation. It looks to me like the grand list is going to be down somewhere between 16 and 20% based on my rudimentary calculations, which means the mill's got to go up by 20 to 25%. The website appears to have been taken off the town page for the old assessment rates. Up until 2 days ago, you could go in and get the new assessments on one link and the old assessments on another. I can no longer find the old assessments, so I don't know whom I need to speak with about that, but I'd love to see that up, especially given that the appeals window is open until February 20th. With regard to but jumping to the high school, it's under my understanding is we have not yet issued any paper for the high school. I brought something for all of you to peruse. At one point during the campaign, you indicated that the credit rating had saved the town millions of dollars. The reality is that the difference between a AA plus and a AA minus is de minimis from a rating, from an issuance standpoint. That's, you don't save any money at all. They're both solid credits. However, given the Fed's tapering of their buybacks, interest rates, as you're well aware, are rising. The muni market is actually tightening relative to the Fed curve, but this is a chart of AAA munis. We're a AA credit. We should fund about 10 basis points off of this, but over the past year, rates have gone up 1%, but they're fluctuating a lot. There's still a window. I'm curious to know when we're going to start issuing. I anticipate we're going to have to issue $65 million worth of paper. Every half a point is roughly $250,000 a year in interest. So if you're interested, you can pass those around for later use. So I'd love to know when we anticipate this budget. My understanding is that the current budget does not reflect any capital expenditures for the construction of the high school yet. Page's Lane was mentioned in the last thing. I know Gary is opposed to moving the $83,000 from land acquisition funds to fund this study for the septic treatment facility down on Page's Lane. I'm not convinced, primarily because I haven't seen any cost-benefit analysis numbers or any economic data whatsoever, that the town taxpayer should be paying for a study that appears to benefit 1 or 2 developers only. So I'd love to know where one could get their hands on the numbers that we anticipate from a revenue and expense to the town going forward if a low-density or high-density development takes place down in that neighborhood. And I think that's basically it. It looks to me like we're looking at a mill rate of, based on your 4.7% increase, which is contradictory to what you talked about going forward, which was that the increase in taxes was going up at a decreasing rate throughout the past 4 years. The preliminary budget looks to me like 4.7% at the town level and 3.22, I believe it is, 3.07, excuse me, is the current Board of Ed proposed increase with full-day kindergarten. So it looks like a 3.7% increase overall, which is going to get our mill I think up to 28.71. That's assuming only a 16% drop in the grand list, which I think is probably on the low side. I think the drop is probably closer to 20. And then when you throw in the high school, we're looking at a mill rate north of 30. So to me, that's troubling. Property taxes are regressive, as you know. In the data that I've looked at, it looks like the higher end people, their assessments went down by a greater percentage than the lower, which means what we're doing is we're shifting the tax burden from the wealthy to the less wealthy in town, which to me is not a good recipe going forward. So these are all just concerns.
Okay.
There were some questions in there, but
Thank you.
Not going up.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the board? Okay, move on. Item 3, approval of minutes. We have quite a bit of minutes to approve. We'll start with 3.1, the minutes of January 15th, 2014, which is the budget workshop. So I have a
I
motion.
move that we adopt the minutes as we have in our copy.
Second.
Is there any additions or corrections?
A couple of minor typos, which I checked with Tracy on the way in.
And she's all set.
She's all set.
Okay. Anything else further? All those in favor of adopting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Abstain.
And one abstention. 4 affirmative, 1 abstention. 3.2, acceptance of the minutes for January 16, 2014, budget workshop. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any additions or corrections? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Abstain, Trace.
Item 3.3, approval of the minutes for a special meeting of January 22nd, 2014. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any additions or corrections or comments? Roll set. All those in favor? Aye, unanimous. 3.4, approval of the minutes for a special meeting of January 23rd, 2014. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any additions, corrections, comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 3.5, had a lot of meetings, huh?
Yeah.
Approve the minutes, a special meeting of January 23rd, 2014. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any additions and corrections? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I just want to make note, there were 2 meetings on that January 23rd. One was a meeting that was postponed from the regular meeting, and this was, again, another special meeting. So just so we clarify that. 3.6, approval of the minutes for budget workshop of January 27, 2014. Do I hear a motion?
Aye. So moved.
Second.
Any additions, corrections, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, unanimous. Okay, we got through that. Item 4, environmental planner Kevin McGee. Consider and take possible action on a resolution endorsing a proposal submitted by the South Central Regional Council of Governments for Regional Performance Incentive Program grant. Good evening, Kevin.
Good evening. Our COG is going after a grant for aerial photography and LiDAR data so they can improve the mapping that we currently, or actually they're starting to develop as a COG. The purpose of it is actually to create some planimetric data, pulling pieces together of all the towns. The planimetric data, what they consider is roads, buildings, driveways, large parking areas. This will provide the town itself with the aerial photographs, which will provide better resolution than the stuff sometimes you're looking at that Google provides for us to work with. So it's a bonus for the town here. The no cost to the town, even though there's a chart in the back, but that chart is pretty much for their grant comparison of describing the cost benefit of the project as a COG region of costing each town. They said about approximately $200,000 if we did it on our own, and where the joint resources, because there's overlap in flights and stuff, is about $760,000. So that's the cost analysis that they're providing for the grant. That would be actually a savings for the the state as a whole if they can get this grant proposal.
Do I understand you correctly, Kevin, that they're suggesting that each municipality to do this would be 200,000? Is that what that's saying?
That's what they're suggesting, yes.
So 15 times, okay.
Yep, so it's.
I wasn't sure what that
Yeah.
comparison meant.
Yep,
Does this eliminate the need for some of the GIS requests that you have had in your budget from
This'll-
time to time?
this will eliminate, if they get their grant request, will eliminate the 50,000 that I pushed off recently in
Right.
the capital budget.
Okay.
So yeah, there is a savings to ourselves here. By passing it off, we actually hopefully may take some advantage of our COG, where we've been progressive and we've been ahead of COG with a lot of stuff we've been doing. This one, we're trying to stay the pace with them and get some value out of.
I think they're trying to stay pace with Guilford.
Yes, we
Guilford
gotta
is-
slow down now.
Yeah, Guilford has always been commended for taking the forefront on these issues. And I had a discussion with the executive director the other day, and I'm saying, this is all well and good, I support the resolution. I think my board will support it, but when we did the hazard mitigation, we were ahead of all the other towns, and I want to make sure that we get our monetary credit for it, and Carl said, you sure will, so, okay. All right,
So that's what this is about. If there's any questions, I can answer them.
any questions? It's just that we need to approve a resolution to, so the COG can move forward with the grant request. The COG, actually, people watching is the Council of Governments for the Southern Connecticut region, which we're members of. So, seeing no further comments, I'll ask for a motion, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you, unanimous. Thank you, Kevin.
Just before we leave, do we need to authorize somebody to sign this?
That would be-
Usually when the resolutions happen, we have to authorize
Yeah,
a
that
sign.
would, the
We'll
COG
authorize the first
The
selectman.
COG didn't request it, but I
Okay.
think you make a good point.
I'll
We'll
move that we
authorize the first
authorize-
selectman to either sign it or designate an appropriate party to sign it as
Second.
we discover is reasonable.
All
Second.
those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Kevin. Item 5, Parks and Recreation Director, Rick Maynard. We've got two items. 5.1, consider and take possible action on a request for a change order for the design and construction administration work to be performed by William Thompson, AIA and Associates, LLC, for the construction of the Chittenden Trailhead Boardwalk. Good evening, Rick.
Good evening.
Yep.
Good evening. So you're all aware that we entered into a contract with Will Thompson for the Jacobs Beach project. And when that first contract, when we first bid that out, we had an alternate for the Chittenden Park Boardwalk. And that was, at the time, we thought we could do those concurrently, and we weren't able to, and we didn't. And we're working on that project now. In fact, it's out to bid right now, the boardwalk for Chittenden Park. And so the price that Will had included in his RFP was based on doing those projects together. Now, if they're separate, there's an additional request for some additional funds, a change order, an amendment to that original agreement. And so the expected amount is $2,800 for his services. And that would be for the procurement of the contractor, checking references when we get to that point, and doing the oversight of the project, visiting it, being there, if there are any change orders from the contractor, do all that type of thing. And so because it was not part of, done concurrently but separately, there are additional fees associated with that. So we're looking for improvement of $2,800 as a change order or an amendment to the original design services.
Okay, and since this is, according to our new purchase policy, in excess of a 5%
Correct.
change order, that's why it's being brought before this board. Gary, you were going to say something?
This would be paid out of,
The reimbursable account.
All right, Rick, now, you want to mention the grant that you received from the Connecticut Forest and Park Association for the project?
Yes, yeah, we have, they've committed $80,000 to the project. Like I said, we're out to bid right now. The bid opening is next week. Tomorrow, we actually have the
site, I'm sorry, not tomorrow, Thursday, the mandatory site visit with any potential contractor, so they're there and they can totally understand how this is gonna work. The Connecticut Forest and Park Association has committed $80,000 to build the boardwalk.
Okay.
That's great, there's no cost to the town for that part of it.
And so we think the boardwalk will be constructed within that cost?
Well, we're hoping, we'll know for sure when we have a bid opening, that's our expectation.
Is it possible that the architect's fees could be covered by that grant?
Yes, if there's, I would say yes, if there's enough money, if the project comes in under 80,000, then yes, they're committed 80,000 to the project, whether it's the construction of the boardwalk or
Okay.
if it would help pay for some of those fees, yes, we've had that conversation.
Rick, I guess what I don't understand is, we've talked about this whole thing extensively. I don't understand why now it's coming up about the architect's fees. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, he's been on this project from the beginning. I don't understand why this is happening now.
I don't know if I have the full answer to that,
Yeah.
but I know that I got a note from him a week or so ago that he said, yeah, we're getting to the point where we're at the end of what we've allowed for the project. And now, I think because of the time that he's put into it and the fees that are associated with that, he said, I'm gonna need some extra pay. I mean, I can tell you that he has, we have every one of the bills that he gives us, and on each one, he shows a deduction. He's reduced, give it a break, let me say, on his services. He's given us a lot more than what we're paying him for.
No, and I'm not saying that he hasn't done a good job.
Yeah.
Don't misunderstand me. I
Talking
just
about
thought
Jacob's Beach or Chittenden?
Chittenden.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know, but
He's
it
been
just
working on
seems
both.
like,
Yeah.
that's why I'm just trying to understand, because it wasn't clear from the emails that we got. That's why. Like, so we don't do, like, he doesn't set a flat fee for his work then. It's hourly, I guess that's what I'm trying, like.
No, it's both. There was a total, it was $16,450, I think $440 was what was in the, probably 3 years ago now, 2 years ago, that was in the RFP for Jacobs
Yeah.
Beach, for the alternate for doing Chittenden. But there was also, that's the basic service, and there were additional fees beyond that, would be billed out at $110 an hour. And additional things are like, I don't know, let's say for example, that maybe in his additional proposal, that he allowed for 4 meetings, but maybe
Yeah.
there were 8 meetings, and so he's got to bill out for those extra meetings.
But I guess who's reviewing these bills?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have we had legal look at anything? I mean, as far as to determine the work done? I don't know. I just see, I'm just confused. That's all.
I'm on top of it.
She's on top of it, right? Yeah.
Because I think that, I wanted to begin to review those more in depth because you gotta look at what the scope was in the
Yeah.
bid.
That's my concern.
And I think that's a valid concern.
So
I
can we just table it and have Pam just review it to make sure that, I don't begrudging him the work he's done, that's not what I'm saying. I just wanna make sure that he is being paid what he should be paid. And if he is giving us a credit, that's wonderful, but wanna make sure it's legal, that he's giving, based upon the original bid, and make sure, that's all I'm saying. I'm just concerned about some of the legality issues, cause that's what was confusing to me, that's all.
I don't think we even knew the scope of the Chittenden project when we bid the Jacobs. 3 years ago, I don't think we had any idea that there was gonna be a New England Trail and an $80,000 grant from Connecticut Forest and Park. So this is kind of new work. This is new
Yeah.
to that process, I think.
Which is fine, Gare, but why don't we just get an understanding of what, so that we're not gonna come back here 3 months later and he's doing more work. Again, I'm not
Rick, was it
begrudging him.
originally he planned on just doing Chittenden while he was doing Jacobs, and now he's realizing that they are two?
The plan, I'm trying to think back, Charlie, to, it's been so long now since, and we've all
That's
done
what
a
I'm
lot
trying
since
to-
then,
right.
Yeah.
but I believe that part of it was that we were anticipating that we might be able to do them together, but when we got the steep grant, the $500,000 grant, it was specifically for Jacobs only.
Right.
We were hoping we could use some of that, we could tie that into the Chittenden project, and we couldn't. It was specified in the grant, Jacobs Beach only. And so, I don't think we knew that information when we got the RFPs and went through that whole process, and so that eliminated basically doing this together. We couldn't do it as part of the Jacobs project at that point.
But in the RFP, did he include, whether in his own mind and or on paper, part of Chittenden?
That was an alternate.
Yes. It was listed as an alternate, so again, we thought we would do them together, so, for example, again, if he was going down, if we're doing both at the same time, we might have had the same contractor doing both, so he's got one bid spec, he's
But he
going
bid
out.
the alternate, bid it as an alternate,
Yeah,
all right? So why is it different now than why isn't it just that alternate bid?
because actually in the bid spec, it said that price was if they were being done concurrently,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, unless it's gonna hold something up, I think Cindy's got a valid point to get all of our ducks in a row, to just,
Maybe even just 2 weeks to the next meeting. I mean, it depends how, I don't want to.
Would you want to make that in the form of a motion then?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we table it to the next meeting, allowing town council just to review the
is
situation.
this
How's
gonna
that?
hold up any issues, or
Well,
what's happening?
it might, only in the sense that, the project really,
Excuse me, Rick, we have a motion. Is there a second before?
I'll
discussion?
second,
Okay,
and then
thank
for
you.
discussion.
Go ahead. Rick.
the project, we need to get the project going in March, because there's a whole nesting situation, this is DEP regulations, and if we push it back, I mean, right now, we're looking at, if bid opening is at your next meeting on the 18th, let's say contracts are done, February 20th.
So what you're asking us to authorize is him preparing those bid packages that you wanna open later this month.
Well, yeah, they're prepared now, but now the next would be to then work with the contractors and for him to make a recommendation to us of who, checking references and who he thinks we should contract with, making that recommendation.
Rick, I think just to clarify this, we put out a bid package, correct? To put out a big bid package, we had to have a design.
Correct.
So the work has been
The
designed.
design is done, yeah.
Okay, so I don't see where we're gonna be
No.
holding him up
And
that
he's
much.
helping you review the bids, right?
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
that's part of the.
Yeah, I don't
that's what
see
you're
by
right.
tabling this if we're gonna hold it up that much.
Okay, I'm just
So
trying to
I'm
get
fine
a
with
direction. I
tabling
mean,
this, yeah.
I think generally, we're supportive of his work, but there's enough questions that
There's
have popped up.
There's a
here that-
comfort level though, I think we wanna have. I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak for you guys.
No,
No, I agree.
All right, there's a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded to table item 5.2. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Unanimous.
Oh, 5.1.
I'm sorry, 5.1, which is the additional fee from Thompson Associates, all right? We had a vote on it, and I think it was unanimous, all right, okay? Now we'll go to 5.2, discuss and take possible action to allow Hospitality Expert Company to park a maximum of 9 trucks and chippers in the Lake Quantipoc parking lot until March 28th while performing tree trimming operations in the area, subject to town council approval of final agreement and receipt of insurance certificate. And I think we did get some of that documentation today, right, Pam? So we did get the certificate of insurance. It should be
Question I would have
in
on the
the
insurance
packet.
is you start parking, how many trucks, 7 or 9 or something?
Up to 9.
9, up to 9.
Does that insurance or bonding or whatever, any environmental issue, I mean, you start parking heavy trucks and heavy equipment up there, across from the lake, does that insurance cover that kind of stuff? I mean, say a tank starts leaking.
I don't have.
I
a
mean, there
copy
could
of
be
the certificate
fueling
of
trucks
insurance.
there and anything
No,
like that.
no.
This started out, they
They just need a
sent me-
place to park, and that,
Yeah.
I understand that, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's also across from the lake, and a little sensitive to that lake after last year, so. I would like to make sure that the insurance, covers, spill issues or any of those potential issues. Other than that, I'm supportive of
There's a line in the insurance certificate, Charlie, that says products, I'm not sure I'm good at reading insurance certificates, but it looks like there's maybe a $2 million liability limit there.
I think it would just take a phone call with their insurance agent to get, and working with our insurance agent to get that clarified, because my off-the-cuff response is that general liability, not necessarily covers environmental issues, but you would think that these kind of companies would have an environmental piece as well into their insurance. So
Oh,
we just need
let's
to
hope
have
they
it,
do,
so-
but I think it's
Exactly.
worth double checking, because all you have to do is have one tank empty out up there and you got a problem.
They're not working for us. This is just a convenience to them because they're
They
working
work
there.
at CLP, I believe, on this. Which, they trim our trees, they're helping us, okay? Did you want to make a motion with that stipulation?
Yes.
Please do.
So move.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion?
The stipulation is that Pam reviews the
Verify,
insurance coverage to
yeah.
confirm that there's environmental coverage. Right.
Which I think is an excellent point.
Yes.
Considering what you had to handle last June, I think it
Yep.
was. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, well, set, unanimous. Thank you, Rick.
Okay, thank you.
We should just-
Maybe as a favor, Kevin, you can get them to cut a couple trees for us.
I'm watching stuff. They're doing a bunch of roads in North Guilford.
Yeah, yeah. Item 6, discuss and take possible action on fiscal year 2014, 2015 budget and 5-year capital plan. I'm going to ask the finance director and our human resources director to join us at the table. Our in-house counsel is welcome to join us if she so wishes. There's no basketball games to go home to tonight. Thank you, guys.
There is a basketball game tonight.
You're not interested. You can stay here. Good evening.
Hello. We have a lot of documents.
A lot of
to pass out,
paper,
A lot of paper, unfortunately.
Speaking
So
of
let's
trees.
try to-
Those trees are already cut.
I
so.
think we'll just start with, Joe, if that's okay. You wanna?
I'd like to, I don't know what you have in mind, but I would suggest that we take a look at our expense budget, since that's where we left off at
That's
the last
exactly what I was gonna
workshop,
say.
and see what you want to present after you and I have been working on this a little while longer, so.
Okay. There's extras in that pile. I have two scenarios. Do you want me to
Yeah.
pass them both out now, or?
Sure, why not?
There's 5 here.
How do you want to start?
Your bars? Get that out. Okay, so this is the document which you've seen before.
Mr. McKenzie would like the copy.
I have a copy,
Is
yes.
this them?
That one is extra.
That might be the one we vote on.
That's okay. If
Okay.
you don't mind, I just like looking at it.
No, it's fine.
And the other one is,
Okay.
right.
Okay, Cheryl, yeah.
They're on the floor. In the back, yeah, they're just on staple. This is the document that we've discussed at the prior workshops. It's the line item budget detail for all the departments for general fund, and there's a column for Board of Selectmen changes. There are a few changes from the last workshop that we could go over. I don't know, Joe, if we need to go over all of them again.
No, I just think the last ones, that we were at, let me set the stage, we were at 3.45 when we adjourned the last workshop, and we've made further adjustments to that, so I'll let you go over those, okay?
Okay, so if we turn to insurance, we discussed this a little bit last time. We had a line item which was a credit
Which
to
page?
the expenditures.
Oh,
Towards-
two.
should
Towards
be-
the back,
Got it.
yeah.
It was a credit for the Kerma equity distribution that actually reduces the insurance expenditure budget overall. That was $10,000, and if you remember, we took that out, and so it was the opposite of a cut. It looked like we were adding back in, which was really the case, and now we've decided to leave that, and so now it doesn't show any change at all. Remember that last year we got $52,000, so we think we're still being conservative at 10, so we're leaving that as a credit to the insurance.
What did we get
line
last year?
budget. 52,000.
52. The only thing I will add to that is that Kerma has had another good year. Mitch was at the annual meeting on Friday.
Yeah, it was at the annual meeting. Unfortunately, though, unlike other annual meetings, they did not make an announcement of a equity distribution for this year
Okay.
at this point.
So, but in discussions we had with their representatives, that there is still a good possibility that we'll get that. I think if we do get a distribution, it's gonna be in the neighborhood of 40 to 50,000, so the 10 is a very conservative number, okay?
Okay, so then, if
When will we
we,
get that?
July
Yeah,
sometime?
it's-
Okay,
yes,
so that's
during-
after the fiscal
during
year?
next fiscal year, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
if we move on to capital, which is the Department 00146, so it's toward the back.
I spilled my water.
I'm sorry, 00147. We made one further change to capital, and that was for the building official's vehicle. It was in for 28,000. We reduced that. And one of the factors that influenced our decision was we looked at the 2016 capital budget, and it was on the low side. And you can see that we'll pass out the general fund capital sheet in a minute that shows the 5-year plan, but we thought that we can move that to 2016.
It's not a vehicle that's in dire need right now, but like Sheila said, in keeping our level of capital expenses from the operating budget at a decent level. And if you look at the 2016, it was about half of where this year's is at. So we moved that into 2016.
What vehicle was that? I'm sorry.
The
The
building official?
building official is a pickup truck,
We're
four-wheel
also gonna-
drive.
We're also gonna check with the police department and see if anything was coming off.
Yeah,
of
whatever is
this.
coming off is not four-wheel drive at this moment. Okay? Push come to shove, if something breaks down, we'll accommodate them in some way.
Would now be a good time just to pass out the capital
Sure,
operating piece?
sure, we're talking about that now.
Yeah.
Make sure I don't spill
See
anything.
another one, Joe. That's happening, there's another one.
There you go. I knew these were there for a reason. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this really shows the capital, general fund capital plan in a little more detail than what you see on the line item, because we combine projects on the line item budget for accounting on munis. But this is the detail of everything. It also shows you the next 5 years, the projection for general fund. So the 2015 Board of Selectmen budget column right in the middle of the page matches the total on the line item budget of $856,380. You can see all the projects in detail. And then you can also see that in fiscal 16, even though we moved the $28,000 truck over, it's still at a lower point of $615,000. We're trying to
So
boost
this is
that.
the operating, not the capital? I mean, not the bond?
Not the bond.
Right.
correct.
I have another document that gives it all to you, but this one is just the general fund.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
There are actually there are some items that have been moved to capital, so you'll see them, they haven't been necessarily cut, just moved out of operating. They are, I guess I could tell you what they are. Those are the HVAC system upgrade at the police department, the Town Hall South boiler conversion to natural gas, the Pages Lane waste treatment study. And I think that,
But where did the HVAC go?
it's in the other side of the capital
Environmental,
plan.
The energy.
The energy
It's
center.
200,000 for the energy, okay, right. And that's what it was there for. We realized
Yep,
Right.
why not use it? It's
Yeah.
there, okay?
so when you're ready, we can go over the
Yeah.
capital part, but this is the general fund piece. And I think those are the only two changes that we made since our last budget workshop.
You mentioned the 10, 28, and, right, that was it, okay.
So that brings us down right now to a 3.30% increase, and that is with the Public Works new position in at half a year.
Right. Or if you take it out, you're down to 3.2.
Again,
That's right, that's why we gave you two, okay? You know, the
you know,
option.
since I'm slower than most, just the 16 budget, apropos of Kevin's presentation earlier, if COG does do what they're gonna do, that aerial photography item in the budget will disappear.
Well, right, and this is only a plan.
Right,
Yeah. I just,
So, yeah.
footnote it.
yeah, that's a good footnote. We don't get a lot of good footnotes.
So your second document that looks the same as first, I just wrote on the top so you could see the difference, is exactly the same, but no new position for Public Works, bringing the budget down to 3.25%.
Now, just one clarification on the 3.25, where we eliminate the half-year addition of the Public Works maintainer. If we eliminate that, we have to put back in the budget the $18,200 for the subcontractor for snow plowing.
Right.
So it's a reduce one, increase the other, so just so we know that, okay? Anything else on that?
No, that's all I have.
Okay,
And we've
discussion? Yes, Gary?
fully costed the pension and medical benefits on that position?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, you will, I don't know if it shows in this document, but that would, if we reduce that position or take it out of the budget, that reduces the contribution to the pension, retirement fund, the Teamsters Retirement Fund and the Teamsters Health and Welfare Fund and your FICA and everything else that goes along with payroll to 16,000 and change. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. So you're reducing the position by taking it out by 18 and change for a half year. You're reducing the benefits for a half year by 16 and change, and you're adding back 18.2 to the subcontractor line. Does anybody understand that? Okay.
Right.
Okay. Discussion on it. Comments, any other, how should I say, any other adjustments we want to make either way?
I think you've taken into account everything we've talked about in the workshops, and we just have the two scenarios at this point.
Okay.
I mean, you know my position on the Rex thing, so it's just
On the what?
Rex.
Rex?
Right, yeah, I know that position, okay. And there's one more thing we didn't mention, Sheila, but when we had the last go-round at the workshop with this, when we asked you to reduce the additional hours for EDC, it wasn't included. This has corrected it now, so we're all set, okay? Right. So, how do we feel?
A motion for the purpose of discussion?
Sure.
I move that we adopt the budget as presented, including the addition of the road maintainer to be added at the half-year mark, which would give us an increase of 3.30.
3-0. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
I think we discussed it fairly strongly, the other day at the workshop meeting. It's a dangerous situation, but I think you made the case that, it isn't as if the work is gonna go away. It's just a choice between outside contractors or adding the position that we eliminated a few years ago. I struggle with it, but I think we have to see what the Board of Finance and the public tells us.
I know from where we stand today, in case you're wondering, with the Public Works Department, because of our weather conditions, whether you like them or not, we're expended about 80%, it's a little bit less than 80% of our overtime budget at this point. Excuse me, as of last week, we're not counting last night. It's overtime, and the guys are out till about midnight, clearing the roads, and we've got more coming. So, is there a need for it? And the Public Works Commission has been desperately trying to increase their their staff. The work is certainly there. We have a lot of road projects, a lot of drainage projects that we want to accomplish during the warmer weather. Snow removal is what it is. It's going to be there. I mean, if we get a good year, okay, fine, but we haven't had many good years in that regard, right?
Joe, remind me, the contract plowing, is that a fixed number? Do we pay that zero storms
No.
storm every day?
No.
Or is that a per storm?
That's
So that's just an estimate of X number of
Right.
storms times. the
right.
use
I
of
think
the
they
equipment.
used 13 storms on that, okay?
I thought we did have a minimum though. Wasn't there a minimum?
If
that
we call
said-
them in. No, excuse me, there is a
There- there
minimum
was- yeah,
of
there was.
$2,000 for the year.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
It was some marginal.
It's
amount.
minor, yeah, okay. So that's where we are. I mean, I'm willing to discuss anything on the budget. Doesn't necessarily have to be Public Works. We have to make a decision tonight so we can publish it and pass it on to the Board of Finance, February 13th, Sheila? That's the date, I believe. Yeah, okay.
I didn't bring it, but revenues, departmental revenues were essentially the same.
Well, I brought
She has it right here. We're going to go
Is there any?
If you want, it's part of it, we can make this part of the discussion and we can go ahead. And,
Yeah, I'd like to,
okay.
I'd certainly like to see it before we.
Do you have one?
You have a spare set for me, right?
Yes, I do. Essentially, between the state grants and the local revenue, we're up $36,677.
Okay.
That doesn't count the tax, the current tax collection. So that's
Right.
basically flat. At least it's not a reduction like we see in other years, but it's very low.
So you're saying it's the same as last year, sort of?
The local
Essentially.
revenues, I
It's
could
up
tell you,
about
I
36,000.
could tell you where the
something like
differences
Yeah.
lie.
No, that's,
I mean, it's.
So how does that translate into what we're looking at for the mill rate? Assuming all these budgets were passed.
Well, do you want to get to that now? I mean, I should really kind of preface that with some comments
Okay.
about the grand list. And
Yeah.
I did some extensive, I had extensive conversations with the assessor today and also did some of my own analysis because it's a very different grand list than the '02 revaluation and the '07 revaluation. So it's very hard. There's no trends to follow because it's a down valuation.
Yeah. But not for everybody, though. That's the.
But overall, it's down by 12.8%. Why don't I pass out the actual, the grand list? Not this one.
While
Did you
Sheila's
chart?
passing that, I happen to see, I think it was in today's paper, West Hartford was discussing their budget presentation, and they made the point that historically, they've had about $2.8 million in interest income on their funds, and
No,
last
more.
year they had 100,000.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, that's certainly taken a whack out of everybody's budget, which is totally uncontrollable. but-
We were up till 2008, I think we were doing about 900,000.
Yeah,
close
yeah,
to
I
a
mean,
million,
West
yeah.
Hartford's obviously
A
an
bigger
awful
town,
lot
yeah,
bigger, but,
right.
you know, there's no way to replace that revenue.
Right.
Okay, I don't have I brought two versions of the grand list, and I don't have the current one with me. I don't
But the
see.
12.8 number you feel is confident?
That's from the assessor.
That's the assessor's
12.8,
That's-
the
that's his number.
$12.8 million number is, or 12.8% decrease is the grand list that was submitted officially
To the state.
to the state.
Obviously, the reductions were in real estate. There were minor increases in motor vehicle and personal property,
Yes.
period.
But it was mostly real estate.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But the problem is, we talked about this before, Sheila, it's disproportionate. So you have a more significant drop south of Route 1 than you do in other parts, and other parts actually increased. So,
Right, but they're,
so it's gonna be, some people are gonna have a significant increase, while other people might even have a decrease, but that's gonna be,
right.
I think
That's what the appeals are about.
that's right.
What?
That's where you have your appeals, okay?
Yeah, but, yeah.
And,
what's an
and,
appeal?
I'm hearing decreases of 15-17% on average for homeowners. This is a total grand list, including commercial property. But that's what the role of the assessor, the Board of Assessment Appeals is, to handle that issue. We can only deal with the numbers that they come up with, and eventually, obviously, some wind up in court, and then we have to defend it. And that's part of this budget, is that we've increased our
Well, if
expenses
that's
for
the
legal
number
fees.
that they've sent to the state, I mean,
Yeah.
we know that it's not gonna be less. And the decrease might be more because of appeals, but
Right.
the decrease is not gonna be less.
No.
So that's
Yeah.
as good an estimating number as we have at this point.
That's all we have right now.
I know, but it's,
Sheila, you got something?
Yeah, okay, so let me pass out the little analysis that I did, so you could see how it's very different grand list. And this is gonna present a challenge too, and on the flip side, it may help us in other areas of the budget. Okay, I'm gonna pass this out. This is correct. Okay. So, the colored document you've seen in this format before, I've used this in all the prior years. And the top part of it, before you get to the blue shading, is the actual grand list that was.
Wait a minute,
we
I
haven't
don't
got
have-
it yet.
oh,
Okay.
Wait. I'm looking at.
Is that what you said?
So I'm looking at this one, not this one.
Yeah, look at the shaded document first. There's three lines at the top: gross grand list, exemptions, and net taxable grand list. Okay, the net taxable grand list is $3,047,649,750. That is the grand list that was submitted by the assessor. Okay, that's the official grand list prior to Board of Assessment Appeals. Then what I do is I adjust the grand list for budgeting purposes, and that number is $63 million. It's a big number. Last year, it was only about 52 million or so. So it's a bigger number, and this is going to affect how the mill rate is calculated. And so now if you go down to the yellow shaded section, you can see how I got to the 63 million. The first line is a reduction of $6 million for potential Board of Assessment appeal reductions. Now, I looked at the reductions from 2002 revaluation the first year. Well, actually, it's immediately, because it's the Board of Assessment appeal reductions. They were $36 million. And in 2002, or 2007, I'm sorry, it was about $20 million reduction. I'm only putting in for $6 million reduction because of the analysis that I did, looking at the numbers of
Appeals.
parcels that that attended the informal hearings was much lower than it had been in the past two revaluations. And it's a down market, and that plays a lot into
Yeah,
people's
people are gonna appeal for
mindset,
those
right?
now, right?
So $6 million is truly an estimate. We don't really know, but that really needs to be there because we don't want to project a mill rate that's going to be based on a lower assessment. And then the other big number down at the bottom is the local elderly tax relief program. I backed into the number of $49 million because I spoke with the assessor, and he looked at the properties that are part of the program, and he gave me some general numbers based on several mill rates because he doesn't know what the mill rate is, so we used 24, 25, 26, 27. And he came up with actually a little more than I put in, but about 1.35 million as compared to 1,050,000, I think it was, this fiscal year. So, right, so that is a big change from last year in terms of the assessment decrease. So,
Right. But but the tax relief program may not be this high.
I'm only getting the numbers from the
Yeah,
assessor.
no, I know, okay.
And I have to trust him because he
No, no, no,
knows
yeah.
the properties that are part of the program. And those properties may be the older homes that may not have dropped as much as the
Yeah.
average of 12.8%. And that's gonna be the
Because I can tell you, my house went up. So, and that's what I mean. That's why, if you look, it depends
Congratulations.
where. Well, no, but if you look at where the properties went down or where they went up, it's what we've been saying all along was going to happen. It's where they're located.
Well, I don't think every house in your neighborhood went.
No. But a number
Okay.
of them have.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In certain areas, you could see.
And I think Sheila, well, finish your number. I want to go back to that first number when you're done.
go right ahead, go, we could discuss.
I think, and it may not be till a year from now, but I think there are a lot of people who have gotten their assessment notices, have seen it, that their assessment went down, haven't focused on the fact that they're down less than the number we're talking about, and their tax bill will actually go up. And when the tax bill comes out, they'll appeal.
Well, they can't appeal after the tax bill comes out. There can be a court appeal.
Right.
But not
Not to the
traditional appeal.
Board of
to the
Assessment.
Board of
Right,
Assessment.
no, I understand that, but they may, depending on what the number is, then you've got to judge whether your lawyer's fees exceed the value of.
Well, and that goes
what you
back,
can gain in
and
an
that
appeal.
goes back to the expense budget.
Right.
Why our
Right.
expenses are up over 3%, because we have to provide for legal services in that event.
I just, in the back of my mind, I just think there's gonna be more appeals than we think.
You might find that there are more appeals next year than this year.
Yes.
But for this year, I think that there won't be as many for the reasons that you think.
Well,
No,
because
I
if
agree.
people see a
It'll be next
decrease,
year.
they're
It'll
not.
be-
They're like, why am I appealing a decrease?
Right.
Yeah.
It's not gonna come out until
Unless they're
next year.
So, because if you
Right.
look at the numbers, they're kind of interesting in terms of the comparison. Pam probably wouldn't, oh, she's not here. They're not interesting to a lawyer, I guess, but there were 932 Board of Assessment appeals in the 2002 grand list, and 881 in 2007. Okay, this year, there were about 400 appeals or hearings that were held. And traditionally, if you look at the percentage, it's about 70 to 60, 68 to 70% of those who appeal that attended the hearings. So that brings us down to only 250 potential Board of Assessment appeals.
So has the time for appealing already passed?
The time to
No,
meet with the company that we hired to do the assessment, that has passed. That ended January
The
28th.
informal one.
Right, the informal one.
informal.
That's what's called the informal.
That's what the informal.
Right.
So now you can appeal to.
Now you can only
Now it's the
appeal
real
to the
thing.
Board of Assessment
right.
appeals.
And there's
Okay.
only another, I think, 2 or 3 weeks left to schedule an appointment even. I think it's the middle to the end of February.
Yep.
And there are very few appointments so far. So I anticipated
So we
250.
added 3 more people.
And it's
to
probably
that.
less.
Yeah, why did we have these people today?
What'd you say?
Why did we just vote on new people?
That's what I just said, you know?
That's what I'm trying to understand. But so you had 400 informal hearings. Or
We
we
had
don't.
400 informal hearings compared to 1,300 and 1,200 the prior years.
Right.
So it's a lot.
No. That
more.
makes sense because if most people
Right.
went down, they're not going to. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So then you're estimating 250. They may not be, but then you're saying that people can still appeal next year.
They can appeal their
after the-
next
Appeal
year's
every year.
assessment, yes, which would be theoretically the same if there were no changes in their property.
In other words, when their tax bill gets adjusted and everything, and they realize that even though their assessment's down, their taxes are still.
Yeah, but you have to appeal to court then.
No, you can go to the Board of Assessment Appeals next year,
But do you think that we're going to have?
but it wouldn't be for this tax bill, it would be for the next
Next
tax
year.
bill.
Next year's tax.
So again, why do we add all these people? No, I don't care that we do. It
So
doesn't matter.
basically what I
All
did
right.
is, the numbers are down by, 70%
Yeah.
or so. So I took 70% of that $20 million number, and that's how I got the 6 million. It's, the assessor warns that, you know, just because the numbers play out doesn't mean that there's so many other variables that it doesn't necessarily, you know, it's not strictly statistical. You have to look at all the other factors, but I have to start somewhere. I don't think if I use $20 million as a Board of Assessment Appeals, it wouldn't be right, because we won't have that
Too
many,
high.
appeals.
Oh, and you're right.
But if everyone on the waterfront appeals, you know, you could, so it's difficult to predict.
Yeah, this is all entertaining.
What's our mill rate now?
2306.
2306. So part of the increase, so your even though your budget has gone up, well, why don't we could look at that. I'll pass that out.
We still got a motion on the table, so keep going.
Okay. So this is the normal preliminary mill rate calculation.
And again, this is preliminary in a lot of ways. First of all, we didn't approve our budget, and the Board of Ed still has to approve theirs. So we're using their latest numbers
Right.
of what, 3.07, I think it is? Yeah.
The Board of Ed is, on this particular document, I'm showing
is too high.
3.16.
Yeah.
And the town 3.3, that's with the half-year public works
Okay.
position.
This is now 3.07 on theirs. Okay.
Okay, so what we're showing is, to cut to the chase, a mill rate of 27.48, which is a 19.18% increase in the mill rate, which really doesn't, you know, mean that much, because the grand list has dropped by 12.8%, but the spread is the worrisome factor. And part of that is, it's comprised of two main reasons. The increase of 3.2% overall that this document shows, and the additional adjustment to the grand list, which is several $100,000 worth of impact on the mill rate. Does that make sense?
So, just to recap this, we're looking at a town budget for the moment that's on the table of 3.30 increase. And in this calculation, you're looking at a school budget of 3.16, which I know for a fact that's reduced slightly, so. So that brings it to a total town and school budget of 3.2% on the expense side.
Yes.
Am I there? Okay. And school board has yet to act on theirs, so that's where we're at. Okay, anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's a lot of information.
Okay. All right,
And Joe, what you're looking for tonight would be ideally a resolution on approving the town's budget and forwarding it to the Board of Finance for their
right.
review.
What-
That's the motion that's on the table.
Right, and that's by charter, we have to get it done
Right.
real quickly. And that's why I'm looking for it.
We already make that motion?
Yes.
Okay, all
Made,
right, so that
seconded.
is the motion.
And just to recap, the motion is to approve a budget of 3.30, which is the one I didn't spill the water on. Okay? Okay, so. Discussion.
Well, I'll just go. I
Go ahead.
can't support the budget, because this is not what I promised the voters when I got elected. We do. And I know a lot of it, Joe, is not, quote, I hate to use the word fault, but we're being challenged with some insurance costs that are escalating. But I also think that we had an efficiency task force 4 years ago. We did a great job over the course of 4 years with doing the long-range planning and reducing our costs. There are other things that we talked about in the task force, one of them being looking to the next step, which I know you tried, of combining and looking to combine more of our resources with the Board of Ed. That has not been realized. In order for us to get to more efficient budgets where we're delivering the same level of service, if not greater, to the citizens, is to look for those efficiencies. And I think, I've asked for that in the last couple of years. It seems to have fallen on deaf ears, not yours, because I know you've tried. But I think we need to move in that direction. The Board of Ed budget is a good budget in a lot of ways. I've looked at it. Our budget's good in a lot of ways. I think department heads did a great job with trying to keep their costs down. But overall, I think we need to take it to the next step, and I think we owe that to the voters. So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the next step is. I mean, we've had, I thought, some very interesting discussions. We have two obligations, as I see it. One is to provide the services which the taxpayers and the residents of the town ask for and deserve, some of which cost money, don't necessarily provide the return. We're not a for-profit organization, and we have to do a lot of things that are necessary to keep the town operating. We've been through this. We probably all have our own personal preferences of the things we could nick here or there. And, if there is a negative recommendation from the Board of Finance or from the referendum, I'm sure together with the department heads we can find places, but then we will also have to discuss what services get potentially cut in that process. The other obligation is to keep our taxpayers' bill as low as possible. I've looked at state statistics. We are down in the bottom quarter in what the state uses as equalized mill rate, and that doesn't make anybody feel better when their tax bill goes up. But we're like 130th out of 169 cities and towns on equalized mill rate as calculated by the State Statistical Bureau. So, again, nobody likes paying it, but our taxes are not high relative to most of the people in this state, which, again, doesn't make the individual taxpayer writing the check feel good. But we provide pretty good value for what the tax bill is. And I think we've done a reasonable job of reviewing it at this point. Like some of you, I've questioned the extra half person on Public Works, but at a $35,000 a year position. And part of the problem, let me go back. Part of the problem is, and I think Cindy mentioned this too, we're dealing with a history that we didn't create and we didn't change. We can't change because it's contractual, because there were decisions made, for instance, to change the fire department staffing using a SAFER grant, which goes away, which went away. It was before my time, but it's gone away, and we've watched every year a 20% increase in those salaries. We have contractual obligations that don't change. Pension, we've done pretty well on. Insurance, everybody I know is complaining about insurance everywhere. Whether it's private industry, public, whatever. Our number sounds awful to me, but the numbers are the numbers, and we've had some experience that's taken it into the 15% range, which is probably the biggest startling increase in this budget. And there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, we have an obligation to our employees by contract.
You cannot hire another person with adding more
Well,
insurance. That's a start.
That's potentially a start, but that's a minor number. The big number is there. So I will support this budget as written, knowing that we can nickel dime some items out of it, and we each have our preference.
Right.
But that's not the way we operate. It's not like everybody gets a $50,000 cut to make. I think we have spent a lot of time discussing each and every one of these. Mitch, Sheila, and department heads have gone back and researched it. And I don't have any cuts to make at this time, so I'm prepared to support it.
Anybody else?
Carl, no?
No, I said my piece at an earlier workshop meeting. I don't want to have to just repeat myself.
I mean, I could repeat what Cindy said, I could repeat what Gary has said. I'm at the point with this budget, there's no question there are other cuts that could be made. But, you know, I think we as a community, you know, have to not only look at the dollars and cents, because it's very real, but we have to get some things done, and that's what we're doing. We're continuing to do with this budget. If this one doesn't work out, I mean, there's no question about it, there's some things that are going to be missed. I mean, we're going to miss some services, we're not going to be able to do all of the, you know, the construction projects, whether they be the roads and the beaches and the things like that. I mean, those are the kinds of things that we're going to have to cut. And I'm not at that point where I want to do that, because I think as a community, those things are valuable. I mean, we talk about interest rates being down, and you know, to me, that means this is part of the time to get those things done, when the costs are down for getting things done, and we move forward as a community. And I think moving forward is valuable. I mean, Gary hit upon some things that are out of our control, you know, the insurances and things like that. I just think that this budget's higher than I wish it was. There's no question about it. There are things that we could cut, but they would change the way we operate as a community. And at this point in time, I would like to see the commitment of the Board of Finance and the Board of the Citizens of which way they want this town to go forward. I mean, do we just look at the negative side and say, oh, everything's awful and we got to cut everything out? Or do we say, you know, this is an investment we're making in our community?
Joe, can I just insert one more?
Sure.
The other issue that we talk about is the state cuts back. And, you know, we have a service to provide, and we have things, and again, we've all gone through them. And the obvious one would be the Quantapug situation, where it's a state like. Our citizens use it. We have to put the $20,000 into removing the weeds and and what lives in the weeds for the safety and convenience of our people. And I know you're working with representatives and the state, and we may get that paid for, but I think it's irresponsible not to have items like that in there, because our citizens do use it. They use it constantly, and that's our obligation to provide those services too. And you know, this, because the state cuts back, doesn't mean that the citizens deserve less. So you know, yes, we soak up some of those costs.
I thank everybody for their comments, and I respect everybody's position. But if you really understand this budget, and you look into it, and you listen to all of the presentations and went through it, you'll see that this is not a maintenance budget. It's a budget that increases our services to citizens. So what do I mean by that? We're putting more money, more than we did this current year, into road maintenance. We've got 182 miles of road to take care of. It's a lot of territory, and this budget provides for additional road maintenance, and I should say more than maintenance, and in a lot of cases, reconstruction. You know, we took the position with the Public Works Commission that we're no longer just going to chip seal roads, but the roads that need more attention than chip sealing, we're going to address those needs, and we have this past summer, and this budget addresses that going further. We've put more money into that. We continue to fund capital improvements to the tune of over $800,000 out of operating funds, which reduces, in the end, will reduce a bit of our debt service, because we're not doing as much as we want to do on a credit card. We're doing it out of the operating budget. Okay? Again, speaking about credit cards, there's no bonding this year that we're going to go to the voters on. Okay? Increase in medical costs, without a doubt. Gary, I think you mentioned that, and I think Charles did too, maybe Sidney did. 15%. In real dollars, that's $425,000. If you look at your sheets right here, that's a big item. I think last year it was $150,000, excuse me. So it's quite a jump.
And it's 4 times that number for the Board of Ed.
That's correct. That's correct. So we have to provide the medical insurance, all right? The other thing is that, Gary, you brought this up, and I'm glad you did. This year, our budget is impacted by $9,600 for the, because we don't have grants anymore. The grants have run out, particularly on the SAFER grant. So you take that 96,000 off this budget, okay, you're gonna bring way under 2% at least, all right, to 2.4, 2.55. So you gotta keep that in perspective. Quantapug, Gary, you mentioned that, Quantapug. Quantapug is an issue. We've had a couple of situations where people have come out with leeches on them. We can't have that in Guilford. Now, it is a state lake, I agree with you, but it's a town beach. And we have to remediate that problem up there. And the 20,000 is only a Band-Aid. And I am working with the state legislators, and I met with them Friday afternoon and with our town engineer and sent them some more information this afternoon as to what the project would cost to remediate the problem on a permanent basis. They're going to do their best to get us state funding on that. But again, we use the lake. It's an amenity. It's something that our citizens look forward to. Debt service has been reduced this year because of our constant attention to the interest market, the bond market. $2.5 million that we were able to reduce. $500,000 hit last year. $500,000 is saving this year and will for the next couple of years. So I think you got to look at that. December, we went to market for short-term financing to help fund with the high school for $10 million. It was put on bands with 0.16%. That's pretty damn good.
It was the town project.
And school and town projects, thank you. Okay? So we took care of that. We've increasing at the request of Park and Recs and our seniors, we've increased their service and their buses, their transportation. We've made more donations to the meals program, which helps our seniors out. So it's not a maintenance budget. It is a budget that is going forward. We're trying to do provide more services, which I keep saying our citizens expect and deserve. As far as providing services like for snow removal, it's a necessity. And you, Carl, you've been in that spot. The calls you get when the roads are not cleared in time is amazing. And our guys do a hell of a job, but that costs money. I think I said earlier, we're at 80% expended of our overtime budget, and it's in the public works, and it's only the first week. It's not even the first week of February, because this goes back to last month, January. So, yeah, do I want to cut? When I was on the Board of Finance, I didn't know as much as I do now. Maybe that's a problem, but it's nice just to cut numbers, but you got to look at what it takes to operate the town. You got to look at the services that people require, and we as elected officials are obligated to provide. So do I like where we are now? No. Last year we were at under 2%, and that's because we took a huge savings in our debt service. But then again, we used that to offset our pension costs. By offsetting our pension costs last year, our pension funding this year is $138,000 less than last year. And why? That's because we caught up last year. So we're doing the things that we have to do, but we can't do it all at once. You know, we're picking our spots where it's most advantageous to the financial position of the town and our taxpayers. So as much as I would like to see a lower budget, I know what we need. You all know what you need. We can nitpick here and there, and I'm comfortable passing this budget at 3.30% to the Board of Selectmen, and I'll leave it there.
Board of Finance.
Excuse me, Board of Finance, thank you.
The only other point I'd like to make, because because I was thinking about, when you say this is not a maintenance budget, and that's so true. There's a number of things in here that are investments in the future that will make a difference, okay? We can't, if we talk about labor negotiations, I mean, that's a very costly item right now, but we are working very hard to treat our employees fairly, yet bring everything in, a better alignment with going forward with the 401s and whatever. And that takes time and money, but that's an investment that will pay off in the future.
Yeah, and to that point, I will say that our bargaining units who represent our employees, who I think do an excellent job, are tough. They're not willing to give up the traditional pension plan for new hires. And we're fighting that, and that's costing us money. That's in this budget, okay? Now, so it's just not a matter of, okay, this is what it was last year, we'll increase it. It's what we want to do to move the town forward. I thought I was done, I guess I'm not. Okay, we have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? May I call for a vote? All those in favor of sending to the Board of Finance, let me get the right amount here, a budget of, Sheila, correct me if I'm going to be wrong, $32,941,826 for, excuse me, I did say it wrong, I was in the wrong column, $31,898,079 to the Board of Finance. That's the motion, was made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. For approval, one opposition. I guess there's no abstentions, so we have 5 people. Okay. Moving on. I lost my agenda. All right.
Here.
Yeah, thank you. We have appointments and resignations, I believe, is next. That's item 7-1. Act on a recommendation to reappoint Richard Meyer to the Inland Wetlands Commission for a new term to begin March 1st, 2014, and expire February 28th, 2018.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Act on a recommendation to appoint Calvin Page as an alternate to the Inland Wetlands Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire February 28th, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Item 7.3, act on a recommendation to appoint John Billings to the Conservation Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire February 28, 2015. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Gary?
I would ask that we table this. Mr. Billings applied, I read his, and somehow I can't get my finger down. He applied for planning and zoning. He made comments about wanting to be involved in economic development, yet he was recommended to the Conservation Commission. To the best of my knowledge and the best of the people on the Conservation Commission, he hasn't attended a meeting. I don't know that he's interested or not interested, but I would suggest that if that's the commission he is interested in participating in, that he would attend a Conservation Commission meeting, find out what the duties and responsibilities are. This is one of those commissions that that much of the work is not done on the fourth Tuesday night or fourth Thursday
meeting,
night
yeah.
At the meeting, but there's a lot of on-the-ground work, there's a lot of duties, and it's important that people that go on those types of commissions understand what's involved and what they're going to be asked to do. And so I would ask that we table to give him a chance to attend a meeting or talk to the chairman of the Conservation Commission about his interests and skills that would apply to that commission, and then we could bring it back at a later time.
Okay, I understand your concerns. I suggest maybe you want to have a conversation with him, since,
I'd be happy
okay,
to, but
all right, good. Motion made to table, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that's unanimous. Item 7.4, act on a recommendation to move Carol Hart from an alternate to a regular member of the Youth and Family Services Board to fill a vacancy for a term to expire September 30th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, that takes care of the appointments and resignations. Now, item 8, request for the use of town property. We have items 8.1 to 8.6.
Subject to discussion, and I know Cindy has a comment, I would
Okay.
recommend the 4 uses and 6 signs as requested in the agenda be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Cindy, you had a
Sure, I just
comment?
wanted to highlight the Guilford Cleanup Day. The Guilford Rotary and the Parks and Rec Department together are going to assume responsibility, and I've agreed to head up this event. And Betty Manis and Carol McCormick did an incredible job in prior years. They're still helping with the event, but they want to sort of hand it off so that others can take part in it. And the Guilford Rotary does a tremendous amount of wonderful things in the town, and they agreed to sort of head up this event. The event is going to take place, hopefully, no rain, on May 3rd, which is a Saturday. If it does rain, it'll be May 4th. And we're getting all of the area businesses and such involved like we've done previously. Starting next week, there'll be articles in the paper about how everybody can get involved, and we really want to try to increase participation in this event throughout the whole town. So it's a really great spring event, and get ready for summer and clean up our town, clean up your properties, clean up your streets, and you'll hear more as the weeks go forward. That's it.
We have a motion on table, it's been seconded for a discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Excuse me. Item 9, correspondence. Does anybody have anything? I do have something to bring to your attention. I have been receiving numerous correspondence in the form of emails and 1 or 2 letters in regard to the proposed proposal before the Inland Wetlands Commission regarding the old Montana property. I've gotten back, and if I haven't, I, in certain cases, will get back to the residents who've written me and inform them that it is not within the authority of this board to act on anything that is an inland wetlands or planning and zoning issue. But I thought I'd bring it over to your attention, okay? Committee reports? Okay, none. Old business, I have none. New business, anybody? No. Public forum, Lynn and Tenny. Item for 3 minutes, anybody wishing to address the board?
A couple of questions along the same vein before. Do you answer questions? Am I allowed to ask questions?
No,
Or are they just what-
it's been the
Can I ask
policy,
you-
thank you. Mr. Kenny, it's been the policy, you can make your statement, and if questions need to be answered, we'll get back to you later on them.
So that, just to reiterate, you mentioned that there was a 10 million short-term note, I presume, issued to the school at an interest rate of 0.15%.
School in town, that was my correction.
Okay, school in town. Am I correct in assuming, my understanding is that the school budget, the cost is 92 million, and the state's gonna pick up roughly 30% of it, which leaves up with roughly $65 million that we're gonna have to finance.
Right.
Am I correct in that none of that paper's been issued yet, correct?
None of the paper has been issued, bills haven't paid out of operating funds, and the $10 million was to reimburse the operating cash. Sheila,
So-
you want to add anything to that?
Can I, I'm sorry.
The $10 million was for the school projects, not the high school, but for all the other projects that they've, were authorized at referendum since 2012. So it has nothing to do with the 92 million.
Okay, so we're still gonna have to, so our 65 million that
It's
we're gonna have to
still
float,
outstanding.
it's not reduced to 55, we still have to float 65
That's
million
right.
of paper.
Yes.
And do we have any idea of when we might start doing that?
Yeah, we're planning on issuing notes, short-term notes, shortly, within the next 2 months or so, and permanent financing in the fall, September or October.
And clearly we have outside financial consultants and whatnot that are helping with this.
Yes.
Are we addressing the possibility of locking in rates at opportune times ahead of that?
Yes.
Okay.
there's a lot of, there's balancing that's involved with this, these decisions.
And then one other last question is with regard to Pages Lane, I think that many people in town are completely unaware of the Town South Plan, which is posted on the website, which people can go to and read if they so choose. But it is a bit ambiguous. My question regarding that is, do we know how much money we've spent thus far and how much we have budgeted for the studies that are being undertaken for that treatment plant?
This board has approved, it's a three-phase project for the study. This board has approved the first phase, is roughly 40-some odd thousand, I don't know the exact number. 43, thank you. And that, we don't go to phase two unless phase one says, keep going, okay? And that will be paid out of the land acquisition cell tower money, not tax dollars.
And along the same veins, has someone done an analysis of what the town can expect to gain from the different types of developments that are being considered?
We don't know what we can do with that property as far as, community septic. Once we can see if it's a go, then we can make that analysis. Right now, we don't know. So it's basically investigating, can we go ahead with it?
That was the reason for the first phase study,
Yeah.
to find out what our options are. And when we know what our options are, we can determine the cost-benefit analysis.
The idea is that,
We don't know what that property will or will not maintain, if anything.
Right, I was perhaps mistaken. I was under the impression that, I believe it's owned by a developer, but I was under the impression that someone had been cleared to already put in up to 60 units, and they were
No.
hoping to get high density in there by
No.
virtue of this study.
no, not at all. The property is owned by the town.
No, not the page, I'm talking about the NAVTEC Lumar.
Oh.
This facility, correct me again if I'm wrong, the study, in the event we go through with this treatment facility, would be to serve a proposed development on the NAVTEC Lumar site.
All you are pointing out is one potential option.
There are
The reason we
several
did the
properties
study
there.
is to find out what options
Okay.
are
Right.
feasible.
Right. And that's, okay,
Yep,
thank you, thank you for coming.
If I can clarify, we said we would borrow from the revenues.
Oh, you caught that, didn't you?
Yes, we would borrow from the revenues with
We will pay it back.
with the objective of getting it paid back by the users.
You know, there is, no one caught me on this. Before we adjourn, there's one more item of business. We have not adopted the 5-year capital plan.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Can I, I'm sorry, one more thing before we adjourn, and I guess this is old business, new business. This has been a tough couple of weeks for this town. Last Saturday, there was a funeral for Art Dolan,
Yeah.
who was a longtime policeman, shell fisherman, and sort of an icon in this town, and a very sort of quiet but important force for a certain population in this town. That was followed by a memorial service for Carol Lee Evans, who was a great friend of mine, and I'm sorry,
Great public servant.
and a great public servant. And then Edith Nettleton a couple days later,
Yeah.
who was librarian from 1936 on, at 34 on, 36 on.
34.
And active until a month or so ago in the library, and just 3 people that the town will miss terribly.
Thank you for bringing it up, Gary. Anything further? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned at 9:03. Thank you for coming. Huh?